All right, go ahead.
Roll call.
Commissioner Albright.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
saw his mouth move.
Unmute, Don. Don. Unmute.
Look in the lower corner, or if you have a keyboard, you can hit Alt-A, and that will unmute you.
I think he sounds better this way, though, don't you, Eric?
I can't say as I'm complaining.
If my wife only had this. Can you hear me?
Albright.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Present. Can you hear me?
Commissioner Beckler.
Here.
Commissioner Swithenbank.
Present.
Commissioner Wiedemann.
Present.
Chair Crane.
Here.
Thank you.
Airport Land Use Commission Administration, discussion and possible action, including adoption of resolution of Mendocina County Airport Land Use Commission finding that state and local officials continue to recommend measures to promote social distancing in connection with public meetings.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Godrowski, for this item, this is something we'll be seeing more of for the near term. At the beginning of the pandemic, Governor Newsom issued an executive order that temporarily suspended certain provisions of the Ralph M. Brown Act. These provisions expired on October 1st and were replaced by the provisions of Assembly Bill 361, which made amendments to the Brown Act. Under these new rules, a Brown Act body may continue to meet with some or all of its members participating virtually during a proclaimed state of emergency if state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing. Mendocina County's public health officer issued such a recommendation on September 29th, 2021, and that recommendation was uploaded to the agenda page for today's meeting. To continue to meet virtually, each Brown Act body is required to adopt findings every 30 days, demonstrating that it has reconsidered the circumstances of the emergency and verify that the health officer's guidance is still current. Technically, this is the first meeting that the ALEC has had since this law went into effect. We went ahead and brought this item forward at this point in time. The County Counsel's Office prepared a form of the resolution that both reviews the code sections and includes references to both the health officer's recommendation and Department of Industrial Relations guidelines. The resolution is for the consideration of the commission, and I'm here for any further questions.
Anybody have any questions at this point? Entertain a motion to adopt.
So move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this matter?
Who's Beckler then Albright?
Correct.
Yes.
No. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I was just repeating the motion in the second.
Motion in the second, yeah.
Any discussion on this item? Call for the question. Roll call.
Commissioner Albright.
Yes.
Commissioner Beckler.
Yes.
Commissioner Swithenbank.
Yes.
Commissioner Wiedemann.
Yes.
Chair Crane.
Aye.
Thank you.
2B, determination of legal notice. Do we have a legally noticed meeting?
Legal notice has been determined on the agenda.
Matters from the public. Members of the public are welcome to address the Airport Land Use Commission on items not listed in the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Airport Land Use Commission. The Airport Land Use Commission is prohibited by law from taking actions on matters not on the agenda. Individuals wishing to address the Airport Land Use Commission under matters from the public are welcome to do so via email, telephone, Zoom. For information on each of these methods, call Planning and Building at 707-234-6650 or visit website. All correspondence will be attached to the item and made available online at the county's website.
So at this point, Chair Crane, we did not have any members of the public who signed up to speak under public expression. However, we do have a couple folks in our waiting room. And so if any members of the public that are in the waiting room and wish to provide comment on under matters from the public and not on the agenda item, please raise your hand. If you are on a telephone, the raise hand feature is by using a *9 to raise your hand, and then we can bring you over into the meeting. And if you're on your computer, there is an icon on the lower panel that does say raise hand. And looking, I do not see any raised hands in the waiting room. So I think with that, we have no members to speak under public expression.
Let's give people a few seconds.
Okay.
Okay. Regular calendar. Owner Rancho UKIAH, applicant Gillian, staff.
Thank you. So Julia Krog, Assistant Director, and I am actually going to turn over the presentation today to our consultant for this project, Linda Roofing, who is from North Coast Community Planning and is available on the line today.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. I'm helping the county staff with the entitlements on this project, and I am going to share my screen and get a slideshow up. And Julia, you'll have to let me know whether I am showing the correct screen here. Let's see.
Yes, that looks correct.
Great, thank you. So as Julia said, we're here today to present to you the modified subdivision and for the Gardenscape subdivision project. It's just as a bit of background, this project was approved by the Board of Supervisors back in 2009 with slight modifications in 2010. At that time, a final environmental impact report was approved and a development agreement. The approved project included 170 or 197 units. The property has changed hands, and the new property owner, Rancho UKIAH, and the applicant, Gillian Inc., are seeking to modify the approvals to reduce the number of lots, to change the layout of the streets, and reduce the density of the project. The project is located at 3000 South State Street. It's just south of the city limits on the west side of State Street, immediately south of Gobelet Lane. It's a 48.8 acre site. Up until earlier this year, it was a vineyard, or at least most of it was. This slide shows the site relative to the UKIAH airport zones. As you can see, up here is the edge of the airport. And then we've got Zone 2, which is the inner approach zone, Zone 3, which is the inner turning zone, and then Zone 6, which is the traffic pattern area, all of which are go over the
Just hit it to really see the top.
site. Slide shows the approved subdivision map for the Gardenscape subdivision. As you can see, the part of the site that's closest to South State Street is not part of the project. And then the subdivision included fairly dense lots along the eastern edge and less dense lots along the north edge and the western edge. And as I said, this was 197 lots. And this slide actually shows the airport zones superimposed on the approved subdivision map. So you can see the Zone 2 over here. Zone 3 covers a portion of the residential area, and then Zone 6. This is the proposed layout of the subdivision. It includes a total of 171 lots. And probably the most substantive change between this and the prior project is that it actually includes this land along South State Street. And right in here in this area, which is entirely within Zone 2, they are proposing a stormwater detention basin, and it will be used as a park for most of the year. This area that's shown in dark gray here will be a gated residential community for seniors in age-restricted community, and there's a total of 39 lots in this area and 132 in the remainder of the subdivision. And then this shows the airport zones superimposed on that map. And I didn't include it on the map here, but I did calculate the number of lots in each of these areas. So in Zone 3 here, there's a total of 42 residential lots. And in Zone 6, there's a total of 46. In the proposed plan, which is a total of 88 lots. In Zone 3 in the approved subdivision, there's 43 lots, which is similar to what's proposed. But in Zone 6, there's 77. So there actually were 121 lots in the two airport zones as opposed to 88 proposed modifications.
Linda, could you speak up a little louder, please?
Sure, thank you. And so this just shows a blow up of the subdivision map with the airport zones overlaid upon it. We're bringing this to you for a consistency review because there are revisions to the project, and while the revisions decrease the number of units from 197 to 171 and decrease the maximum height of the residential structures from 3 stories in the prior or in the approved project to a maximum of 1 story in this project. The fact that this project actually incorporates the land along State Street makes it a significant enough change in the proposed tentative map that it does require consideration by the board. And so going through the UKIAH Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan and looking at the criteria, in terms of intensity, in Zone 2, the requirement is that there be a maximum of 120 people per acre site, or per acre for a single acre, or 60 people per acre site-wide, and those are for the non-residential uses. The only non-residential use in Zone 2, and in fact in the entire subdivision, is the proposed detention basin and park on Parcel B. This is approximately 2 acres in size and would comply with both the site-wide and the single acre intensity limitations. In Zone 3, similarly, the only non-residential use is the linear park, and it too would meet those requirements. And in Zone 6, similarly, it's just the linear park. So it is consistent with the intensity restrictions of the airport. The density restrictions apply to residential uses, and for Zone 2, the density, a maximum density of 0.1 unit per acre is allowed, but there's no residential development proposed within Zone 2. In zone 3, the maximum density is 15 units per acre, and what is proposed site-wide, you have an average density of 3.5 units per acre, and the average single-family parcel size is 7 dwelling units per acre. It's a little more than that in the senior community. It's 8.9 units per acre, but both of these are well within the limitations prescribed by the airport plan. And there is no density limitation in zone 6. The plan also prescribes open land requirements. In zone 2, the requirement is that 25% of the land remain open, and as proposed, 100% of the land in zone 2 would be open. Oops, just looked a little too quickly there. In zone 3, 15% is required, but per the land use plan, because this is in an urban overlay zone, that 15% requirement does not apply. And then in zone 6, 15% is required as well. And here, the streets in zone 6 would provide the sufficient land to meet the open land requirement. The 60-foot right-of-way of the streets is less than the 75-foot minimum dimension that's recommended in the policy. However, on a site-wide basis, the project would meet the plan's open land requirements. In terms of noise compatibility, that was addressed in the final EIR for the Gardenscape project. The mitigation measure that was adopted requires an acoustical study to ensure that the airport noise combined with the noise from South State Street does not exceed indoor-outdoor noise compatibility requirements. In addition, an navigation easement will be required for the portions of the project site that lie within compatibility zones 2 and 3. So in your report, we provided some findings for consideration. The findings are that the project is a revision to a fully entitled residential subdivision. The revisions would reduce the overall density of the development and reduce the height of proposed residential structures. As currently proposed, the project would be consistent with the compatibility criteria for zones 2, 3, and 6, including the intensity, density, and open land requirements as established in the UKIAH-LUCP. And third, the applicant would be required to dedicate a navigation easement for the portions of the project site that lie within compatibility zones 2 and 3. And these include lands within the airspace critical protection zone. So the staff recommendation to the Commission today is to find that the proposed revisions to the approved vesting tentative map and development agreement are consistent with the UKIAH Municipal Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan based on the purpose and intent of airport compatibility zones 2, 3, and 6, as well as the information that's presented today to the ALUC. And that concludes my presentation, so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I have a few questions. There's discussion about the stormwater retention. Is that a pond?
It's not really a pond per se. In the winter, it will collect up to, I think, like 2.5 feet of water during big storm events. But it's got pretty gentle slopes down into the basin, which is a large.
The question for me is about birds. Would that be a habitat for birds that mean, it was indicated in the presentation that there would be nothing to attract birds, but an open wet spot might. So if it drains out,
Yeah, it's
no
not
storm going on,
yeah,
as opposed to holding water seasonally. That's the root of that question.
right. So my understanding, and it may be that the applicant or the engineer are here in the audience and can address this. My understanding is that it will hold water for very short periods of time following rain events, but it's not intended as a pond,
Okay.
at any time of year.
And then the park that's in zone 2, would there be any covenants preventing assemblies from taking place? Community gatherings, concert, whatever. Having a park in an area that we're not really supposed to have people, has that been addressed in the covenants?
It hasn't been addressed. This is coming to you prior to being, going through the planning commission and the board process for approval, but that's certainly something that could be added as mitigation and actually makes sense. I mean, I know of other facilities like this, that are kind of the joint detention ponds where they actually have bleachers.
Assembly functions are discouraged in zone 2.
Yeah.
And then I note that you have avigation easements required in zones 2 and 3, but not in 6. I was curious as to why not a navigation there, and also curious whether or not the applicant may be willing to grant a navigation easement over the whole property, not because they have to, but because it may be something that's beneficial to the community. So those are the things that I had.
And I could at least respond, the policy, it's policy 3.6.2 that requires, one, establishes a height limitation of 35 feet in the airspace critical protection zone, which is what is defined as the zones 2 and 3. That's why it's not applied to zone 6. So that's just the context behind the policy, and where it's required is in those zones 2 and 3, not necessarily in the 6th zone based upon the adopted UKIAH airport plan.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission at this time?
I have one, and it's if as people purchase these lots, especially within these zones, is there any sort of disclosure documentation that they are in zone 2 and that for further information, it just as a disclosure? Is anything like that ever done so they can't come back and say, I never knew I was in an airport zone 2? Is that part of the norm?
That is what the avigation easement accomplishes. The easement will be recorded on their deed.
Got it. Perfect.
Show up in a preliminary title report when you're going through the purchase of a property.
Super.
Okay, would now be a good time to open it up to,
Wait. Look up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry.
I had a couple questions. What was the reason to reduce the density? Was it to mitigate, the density, the reduction of the density from 197 to 171 besides the height of the buildings? So was the reason to reduce it 20, 25, 26 units, was that in the zone 2 and 3 that from the original to the existing proposal? I'm curious at why the new developers, or I believe they're the new owners, wanted the reduction, and or is it to make current, meet the current requirements? Just a little bit.
So if I can speak for the developer.
Yes, please.
My understanding is that they want to develop a subdivision of single-family homes, all detached. The approved project had a number of attached homes. There were townhomes, there were fourplexes. It was just a different product type.
And
Okay.
the agent of the applicant is available on the line today, so when we're ready for that, you could certainly ask him directly as well.
Any other questions from the commission at this time? Open it up to public comment.
I'm wondering, Chair Crane, would you like to hear from the applicant first or go straight to public comment?
Applicant, public comment.
Okay, great.
Applicant first, probably.
Okay, we'll bring over Jake Morley. Jake, we've just brought you over into the meeting. Perfect, you unmuted. Please just state your name for the record.
Hi, Jake Morley with Gillen Inc.
And any comments you have?
Yeah, am I visible? I've never done a public hearing on Zoom. It's always just been meetings. So I'm just curious.
You are not visible right now. We're just hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just kind of scribble down my punch list here of the few questions I heard. The park detention area is not designed to be a long-term pond. It is to just store immediate water during a storm event, and then meter it out gradually over the next like 24 to 72 hours.
Okay.
So it's not designed at all to be any sort of potential habitat. It will have grass. The park will have grass and trees and other shrubs for shade and beauty, but not in terms of a specific targeted habitat for specific birds or anything like that.
But not standing water during.
Not standing water.
Aside
not
from a rain event.
No waterfowl showing up. Not intended. No, not at all. Yeah, the park, the assembly, we're not anticipating assembly there. It's not really designed in that manner. The size and its ability. There will be a play structure. We do have a previously approved project that has certain mitigations associated with it. So we have to mirror or shadow that project. So we will have a play structure there that's not going to be more than any other structure throughout the project, designed for a population of children 12 and younger. The sites, we're not planning to light the park, so we're not looking to have it like a 24-hour type of park. It will essentially be closed at dusk. I believe there's already an navigational easement over the entire property. I was trying to thumb through the title report while we're doing that, but I don't see any harm in having a navigational easement throughout. A question about disclosure documents. Yes, the easement will be noted. So will, access to freeways and distance from schools. There's a lot of disclosures we have to go through the Department of Real Estate. So that will definitely be a part of that mix. And to Linda's question, or Commissioner Weidman's question about density reduction, yes, part of it is we wanted to reduce the attached housing and do single family. We also found that previous design was not quite buildable in today's world. It kind of had a lot of asphalt, had a lot of giveaways that we're not able to really, tackle in today's construction environments. That's at least, I should say that in a cost manner that is equal to the market. So with that, I just want to thank Julia, Matt, and Linda for doing the heavy lifting to organize this meeting and get this item in front of you. So if you have any questions directly, please let me know.
Don't see anybody rushing. Perhaps now open it to the public, should there be anybody?
Sure. So I did notice we had one telephone number on the line. And so for that telephone number, would you please raise your hand if you had a desire to speak on this item? And as a reminder, the raise hand feature is by using a *9 on your telephone. Oh, and it appears that they have now dropped off the meeting. So I will just note for the benefit of the commission, there was one public comment letter provided as part of your packet that was emailed to you yesterday. And let me know if you would like for me to summarize that at all.
Would be helpful. I think
Okay,
it's
sure.
appropriate.
So this letter came in from Bruce and Elaine Richard that live on Gobelay Lane in Ukiah. So that's right near the beginning part of this subdivision, and actually the Gobelay Lane is part of the ownership by the applicant. So there was three concerns expressed. The first was, what is the proposed function of the Gobelay Lane in this project? And they were primarily concerned about whether or not construction vehicles would be using the lane, and then also whether or not there would be any improvements to that section of the road. The second question was about fencing along Gobelay Lane, and they expressed that the project description includes 6-foot high privacy cedar fencing around the parcels, and they were concerned that the fencing would front along Gobelay Lane, and were concerned about what they called, quote, fortress style fencing, and noted that they had previously testified at on the original entitlement, the Gardens Gate project, related to this as well. So then the third item was asking more of a question about if there would be an EIR required for the Bella Vista subdivision, and if so, when they could expect to see that. And that concluded their comments.
Didn't see anything in those that pertain to this body.
Yes, staff would agree with that assessment.
Any, back to the commission, any further questions? Hearing none, entertain a motion.
I so move.
Move what?
Move that we move that we approve this with the addition of the easement over the properties in the area 6.
And if I may, Commissioner Beckler, staff does provide to you a recommended action on page 5 of the staff report for this, if that's helpful to you.
And I did hear a volunteering of avigation easement over the entire subject property, and I think we'd be foolish not to accept that.
Yeah.
So Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, I think on the matter of a volunteered easement versus requiring an easement, I think certainly we can look to the developer to bring that forward as part of a voluntary action on their part for the development going forward. In terms of the ALUC's authority, I don't think it has the authority to require on Zone 6, as it only goes 1 through 5 in the club. So I think it could just be a note for the future, and staff can work with the developer on that. Yeah, that given the statements here today, that he's fine with it going across the entire property. But in terms of the action of the commission, I think it might be limited.
Sounds appropriate. Thank you, Matthew. Motion maker, would you like to read page 5?
See, you know what? I'm looking for the page 5 that you're on the.
Chair would entertain a motion to find the staff recommended action, recommendation 1, find that the proposed revisions to the approved vesting tentative map and development agreement are consistent with Ukiah Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, with the condition to require dedication of avigation easement for the portions of the project site within compatibility zones 2 and 3, based on the purpose and intent of the airport compatibility zones 2, 3, and 6, as well as the information presented to the Airport Land Use Commission. So that would be a so move, Randy.
Yeah, so moved.
We are a second.
Second.
Roll call. Oh, any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Beckler and Albright. Okay.
Commissioner Albright,
Yes.
Commissioner Beckler,
Yes.
Commissioner Swithenbank,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiedemann,
Yes.
Chair Crane.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Matters from staff.
We have no matters from staff today, but of course we're available for any questions you may have of us.
I have none. Commission, any questions for staff?
Oh,
No.
Seeing none, matters from the commission. Any matters from the commission? Yes, Commissioner Weedham.
I just suggest that you look up for what, when you open your feedback from your commission, your board, it'd be so kind if you would maybe let us go first and you do the capture it all. It would just maybe be, a moment of a pause on your part, probably. And I appreciate how efficient you are.
Well, thank you. I'll take that under consideration. Any other matters from the commission? Seeing none. We did have a fatal accident at the Ukiah Airport a couple months ago. Student pilot out of Napa, fairly low time, crashed on takeoff, and the plane flipped over and he died.
Wow.
So wanted to read that into the record as something that did happen. And
Was it? I thought it was landing, but you heard.
well,
it.
he came in to land, bounced down the runway,
Okay.
took power, climbed back out to about 60 feet, so he was actually taking off, and then stalled and hit the runway, sheared the nose gear off, scraped down the runway about 700 feet, and then flipped over and was presumably killed on impact. But
Was he alone?
he was his, my understanding is, was his second solo cross country from Napa. So didn't hear what his hours were, but they were fairly low. Lots of presumable opportunities to avert the accident or get it stopped, but there was a chain of errors that took place that he didn't survive. So approval of minutes. Any questions?
Yeah, I move that we approve the minutes of August 19th, 2021 as submitted.
Do we hear a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Wiedemann,
Yes.
Commissioner Beckler,
Yes.
Commissioner Albright,
yes.
Mr. Swithenbank,
Yes.
and Chair Crane.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Don't move.
I saw Weeder trying to get in there.
Call that motion.
The only time I
Wiedemann,
jump on them.
motion Wiedemann, second Albright. All those in
Yeah.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
One question I have, do we know what our next meeting might be? Is there any schedule?
I do not have any projects tracking at this moment for an Airport
Okay.
Land Use Commission meeting, but I'm sure that something will pop up and we'll be reaching out to do a quorum check with you, so.
And the other thing I forgot to bring up during the commission, the other planning commissioner, is she going to participate next year or come to one of our meetings?
I think
Marcy?
we'll have to look into what is the status of that with the clerk of the board's office that handles those appointments. So
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head.
Sorry, I should have brought that up earlier.
Oh, we've did it. Thank you, everybody, for
Thank
your
you.
attendance.
Yeah, you guys have a good Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, good holiday to everybody.
Merry Christmas, Happy New
Stay
Year.
safe. Stay safe, have fun. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Don't scream. Yes.